This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. Here we are, guys. Thanks for joining me again on this exclusive VIP pain journey. In the first episode, I discussed why I started this show, about the game of living in pain with vulnerability at the core of my heart, my soul, which has led me to this show. To quickly recap, I talked about living in chronic pain with CRPS, which is short for chronic regional pain syndrome, also coined as the suicide disease, and how it has taken so much control over my life and my loved ones as well, leaving us feeling pretty helpless. I briefly spoke about wanting to finally grab the reins through setting boundaries and coming to a place of acceptance, and quite frankly, learning how to say the word no in places that I used to say yes, and to say yes when I actually should be saying no. And it's not easy. It is so not easy. It's like hard fucking work to say no. Like a full-time job kind of work that you don't get paid for. You just lose over and over again. But we can't become a better human on this earth or heal without work, right? I mean, hard stop. So when you look up the word acceptance online, I find it interesting. Well, maybe not interesting as much as I'm just completely befuddled about this. And for the record, I completely disagree with this definition, that acceptance is a way to, quote unquote, not attempt to change or protest it, whatever it may be, whatever you're trying to accept. What? I don't even understand that. So accepting means giving up? We're not going to try to change it or protest this diagnosis that we have? Oh, hell no. Absolutely not. So to me, my definition of acceptance is just far different from that. To me, it means in all cases of painful experiences, small or large, that I accept the reality of my situation and recognize that this horribly painful disease can become a beautiful thing. I want to try to make pain beautiful, because I can tell you one thing, pain has made this woman here a fucking warrior. So how is acceptance possible? I guess from my perspective, it's by welcoming in a whole new thought process, by meditating, by replacing old black and white, movies with fresh, amazing, colorful ones, by painting over these painful murals and replacing them with like a living embodiment of how we can make a new future for ourselves and our loved ones. And no matter what kind of pain you've been through, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, and or verbal, I fall into all those categories. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back, Lyndsay. With each episode, I invite you and all of those around you to join what I am coining this exclusive VIP pain game experience, because we all deserve to have the red carpet rolled out for us. The people that love us and ourselves, our coworkers, we all need the red carpet rolled out. It's about fucking time. I've had it that we're treated as poorly as we are in the pain community. So this leads me to our guest today, Ashley Gerber. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the age of 23. MS is a disease in which the immune system eats away at the protective covering of nerves. In MS, this nerve damage disrupts communication between the brain and the body. It has an abundant amount of the same symptoms that CRPS has, but it just acts differently. The symptoms being vision loss, which Ashley will talk about a little bit, obviously pain, fatigue, impaired coordination, and those symptoms and their severity and the duration can vary from person to person. I mean, some people are symptom-free for most of their lives, while others, like Ashley, can have severe chronic symptoms that never go away and start at such a young age. I mean, physical therapy and medications exist that suppress the immune system and can help symptoms and slow disease progression. If you know who Selma Blair is, she has become a monster voice in the MS community, coming out with her diagnosis as raw as a sexy bitch could do. She was diagnosed in 2018 with MS. And in a fairly new documentary called Introducing Selma Blair, she shared what most would never have the balls to share on screen. And if you haven't seen it, you should. It might just readjust what you find pissing you off in life. Like, take a beat, peeps. It's not the end of the world that, you know, some Prius in front of you is driving you insane. Let's have a better scope of what's really important. The film follows her struggles with MS and the treatments she has used to help slow its progression. And Ashley is actually the first person that brought Selma Blair's story to my attention when we first met. And I've followed her journey as well as Ashley's ever since. And so we meet my sweet little Ashley today with the cutest dimples on the planet. Not that you're seeing them right now, but I do. So lucky me. Who has MS, but she is not MS. She came into my life a few years ago when we were both in the middle of how we were feeling about our diagnosis. And quite frankly, we were train wrecks. We both wanted to support each other as best as we could, but we were both on a wild roller coaster and rarely were kind of on the same one. We just knew that you were on another ride, but we were in the same park. So thank you for joining me today, Ashley. I know how courageous using your voice is, and I applaud you and welcome you to the show.
Hi, it's awesome to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So you have mentioned that you had symptoms of MS for years, but it was dismissed. Can you talk to me about that? Like, did you dismiss it, or did doctor dismiss it, or a little of both?
It was a little of both. I kind of brushed things off, but when I would bring them up to a doctor, they would sort of explain them away or blame them on my weight or anything they could to dismiss me, as far as like, oh, it's just related to your period or anything, basically.
Yeah, just there's always like the pointing to something else because they avoid us. And I'll never forget going to a doctor, and he was quote unquote a CRPS specialist. And when I got in the door, he said, "I've never even treated anybody with CRPS." Well, your website says something completely different. So how were you diagnosed? How long did it take? What were your symptoms? I mean, I know that you've talked about this a lot with me, but that's why you're here.
I woke up one morning and I couldn't see out of my right eye. So I went to the ER because obviously that's not normal. And they basically just said it was an ocular migraine. And they gave me, I think, some steroids or something like that to help with the inflammation. A few days later, I went back to the ER because it wasn't any better. And I think it was a PA or maybe a doctor that finally was like, okay, we'll send you to an eye specialist. They made me an appointment for the next morning. I went to the eye doctor and he pretty much was like, you need to see a neurologist today. She
like hard stop. Hello.
Yeah. She was like, just stay here for a while. We will get you an appointment today. So then I went to the neurologist and she was like, she could see how scared I was just based on the severity and how quickly I had gotten there. So she ordered an MRI and a spinal tap. The MRI pretty much showed that I had lesions all over my brain. And what was causing the blindness was lesions on my optic nerve, which is called optic neuritis. And pretty much been like that ever since. Little surprises all the time of things popping up, but we roll with it.
Do you, in fact, I'm asking this question. I kind of feel stupid. Are you still having issues with blindness in your eye? I know you deal with headaches still.
Not as severe. Sometimes it's a little more blurry, whereas it used to be like complete darkness if I would cover my left eye.
That's crazy. Like absolute, complete, like pirate cover your eye darkness. But obviously no, Johnny Depp kind of situation.
Yeah. Not as glamorous.
Not as glamorous. So with that, you're diagnosed, you find out you have MS. Then what? Like what were the protocols that were starting to put in place for you to try to help you, well, A, get your vision back, And B, did pain start pretty quickly within that span of like it from diagnosis, or was it progressive?
Well, with MS, you kind of have flares of where your symptoms are a little worse, or like a period of gaining new symptoms, basically. So I had pain for years before this, but it was always dismissed. So I just was like, oh, this is just how it is, I guess. This is how 23-year-olds feel. So the eye thing, it was basically brought on by a stressful event. And, the eye thing flared up. I was having a lot of like brain fog, just like coordination issues during that time. So pretty much the course of action for a flare is IV steroids. So we did that. It helped a little, but not drastically, which it's meant to kind of shorten it, not immediately fix it. Sometimes
right. Well, they can't
all.
Fix us.
Yeah. But like, it doesn't immediately take away the flare. It just is like, oh, well, here's some supportive care. And then I started a medicine called OCRavis, but I had a very bad reaction. So at this point in time, I am not on any medication for this besides gabapentin for my nerve pain.
And that is amazing because I've talked about, and I will continue to talk about it, how I will not take pills. Every time I take one, it's take one to fix this. Then you have to take the other one to fix the other one, and so on and so forth. And I'm so proud of you because I'm doing the same thing. It's the bite on the stick kind of chick situation, but I find myself to at least have better focus and much more determination in the things that I want to do, not unlike this show where I wouldn't have been able to do this had I been taking all of the medications that they were putting me on. I just wouldn't have been able to do it. My focus is very, very short-lived. And now I'm with you. I'm on one medication, and I'm proud of you for that. So after your diagnosis, I know pain in general, anybody that's diagnosed with something like you have with MS, it obviously affects your livelihood and your well-being. So what about like your social life and friendships and family? I know with me, I've certainly have turned and burned through a few friends, even some that have been with me for 20 plus years that are no longer in my life. Have you experienced the same kind of situation on your side?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of when I was first diagnosed, I was so confused about what it meant for the rest of my life and what my next steps were, because I ended up losing my job because I, needed to take time to recover and figure out my next steps. I lost my job. So the friends I had at work, weren't really, they were work friends. They weren't reaching out to me to hang out anymore. I was 23. A lot of my friends were young. They didn't know how to be friends with a sick person. So, a lot of them tried to keep in touch, and just as more time passed and I couldn't do the things that we used to do, going on hikes and stuff like that, they just weren't inviting me anymore, which was hurtful. But the mindset I was in, I wouldn't have wanted to be around me either. So I don't necessarily blame them. I struggled a lot with depression because I was in pain, and I was just not in a good spot. I was suicidal. I was just having a hard time accepting my diagnosis. I didn't want to wake up every day. I wouldn't have been upset if I hadn't woken up. It was just a rough time.
Yeah, I empathize and sympathize with that. Ours is different, but a lot of it is the same because you're trying to decide every morning, like I've mentioned, is every morning it's a full and complete decision. Like I have to say, all right, you got this, bitch. Like you got this, you got this, you got this. And then I'm like 2-3 hours into the morning, I'm finally like, okay. And she's rolling. It's like the longest reboot of a computer system. So, you and I met on Upwork, actually, which is so strange. Like that you and I have come as far as we have with these trials and tribulations in the same category. I'm so grateful for having met you, obviously, my love. But so we met each other on Upwork, which isn't, if you don't know what Upwork is, it's an online marketplace to like find freelancers, and for freelancers to find people like myself. I would needed some help with my marketing assistants.